go. First of all, I want to announce that at the end of the meeting, you stay to the end. We are doing a raffle prize drawing. So if you're not a board member, you're eligible to potentially win this raffle prize. If you haven't already won the vaccine raffle with the state, we have a small Amazon gift card to give a participant for today. First, I want to welcome our new members to the chapter. We have Douglas Balsick from the town of Hillsborough. Don't know if Doug is here today or not. And then we also have Madeline Horman from Quiche Environmental, and I think I saw Madeline's in our participants. So welcome, Madeline. I don't know if you want to say hi or.
Hi, nice to kind of see all of you guys.
Okay, so welcome to our chapter. All right, and then I'm going to announcements from events or future events happening in our chapter. Young professionals, is Amir here? I don't think he's here yet. Okay. Next, moving on to admins on chapter supporters. Admins.
Yes, so we have two chapter supporters here, so I'm sure you'll give them a chance to present today.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have still openings for the coming months. So if folks are interested in being sponsors, please let me know. And I want to say thank you for today's sponsors, Cal Engineering and Geology, as well as Tanner Pacific. Mike, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Amos. Next, we'll move to Kevin Ortiz and to give an update about our rodeo.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Lisa, and thank you very much to the membership as well as our chapter supporters. You're a big part of what makes the chapter a success. And also thanks for sponsoring the chapter rodeo. So for this year, our chapter rodeo for 2021 will be in September. And so keep an eye out for updates from the chapter as we get closer to the event. So for sure, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat in case you have any questions about the event, but there will be announcements as well as the application on the chapter website forthcoming. Thanks again for your support.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we'll be moving to John. He's going to give an update of our upcoming golf tournament.
Awesome. Yeah, if you have not seen, we're getting back outside and we're going to go golfing. End of July, we are very excited to bring back our annual golf tournament. We took a one-year hiatus, but we're coming back strong. Signups are out there and are open right now. Not only are we looking for people to come play, but we also welcome hole sponsors. So if you're interested in sponsoring a hole, you'll get some recognition at the event as well as a placard at that hole. And just come out, have a good time. It's Friday, July 30th, and I can't wait to see all of you and get back outside.
Yeah, that'll be a great our first in-person event. So looking forward to that, John.
I haven't seen that announcement. Is that recently sent out, John?
Yeah, I think about 3 weeks ago we started pushing that out.
Okay.
Jason or Lisa, do you guys know if there's been any issues getting that distributed?
No, I've received it in my email. I think others have too, or no?
No, but I didn't join 3 weeks ago. I joined very recently, so maybe someone can forward it.
Okay. John, do you want to put the link on the chat from our website?
Yeah, I'll see if I can figure out how to do that. Although if there's any
Awesome.
other board members that would like to do that, I'm also running a presentation today.
Yeah,
so
yeah. If anyone could help John and put
back
the
up.
flyer for the golf link on the chat. Okay. All right. Thank you for the update, John. Yes, Mike, it's been distributed a few times. It comes in a collapsed email like our lunch meetings. And you have to open the link to see the flyer. But
Yeah, okay, I may have just missed it. Thanks.
okay. All right, and now we're going to move to our chapter supporters. The first one is actually Mike Yeager with Tanner Pacific. I think you've already been made co-host, Mike. So you have a presentation for us today?
I believe so. So just share my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So hang on one second. Sorry.
And after Mike, it'll be Dan with Cal Engineering and Geology.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
All right, let's make sure it's going to work. There we go. Okay. So thank you for allowing me to have a few minutes here. I'll try and go through this pretty quickly, but Canada Pacific, I'm a principal partner of the firm that helped found the firm. We are now celebrating our 5th year, and I think 3 or 4 years as members of APWA. So really enjoy being a part of this chapter. And another one of our engineers, Marina Chekmarova, who couldn't be here today, is also an active member. So we continue to be active in the chapter. We have 42, soon to be 44 employees. And we have a variety of team members, from technical inspectors in the field, office engineers, CMs, and administrative staff, you know, to make sure that the company runs smoothly, do all the things that we have to do. We have offices, our main office is here in San Carlos, but we're growing. We actually are trying to develop an office in Seattle and another office down in Southern California. So things are growing carefully, but we're very excited. These are a smattering of some of our clients, many of you here on the event today, and also in the chapter. And we continue to build our client group and look forward. I very much look forward to actually seeing you all in person very soon. So a little bit about us. We like to do construction. That's our big thing. We are construction managers first and foremost, mostly in water resource type projects. But we're building and we're growing. In some of the areas where we're growing is on the program management side too, becoming owner advisors early on. And we've included some people in our firm who have a lot of that experience. And so we are working on some large programs around the Bay Area, and as noted, in the Seattle area and in the Southern California area. So it's another facet that we are growing. The other area we are growing is tunneling. I'm actually speaking to you from a tunneling conference in my hotel room today. We are finishing up the Silicon Valley Clean Water Gravity Pipeline Tunnel, and soon to start work on the Santa Clara Valley Water District Anderson Dam Tunnel. So our tunnel group is growing, and we're continuing to look for opportunities. And one of the ways to do that is, besides building on our clientele and looking for other projects, is teaming with people, teaming with other engineering firms. So these are a few projects for a few of our clients. Union Sanitary District over in the East Bay. We've also recently been selected to do some on-call construction contracts for several different public agencies, so that part of our business is also growing. City of Palo Alto, City of Burlingame, again, Silicon Valley Clean Water. These are a couple of pictures. The upper left corner picture, I'm not sure if it's left or right on your screen, but it's left on my screen, is the actual tunnel project, the inside of the tunnel. And then the 2 holes you see in the ground is where the tunnel will end in that first shaft, and the water will flow into the second shaft and be pumped up to the headworks building that you see over there on the left edge of the screen. So a lot of fun projects, very interesting. Another very interesting project is one of the first levee improvement projects for sea level rise on the peninsula in Foster City. And speaking of teaming, the next person to present, Dan Peluso, is part of our team, Cal Engineering and Geology. They're a very, very important member of this team because of the type of work that's going on. And they were very integral in helping us win this project. So we're very happy to join them and continue to look for opportunities for us to work together. So with that, thank you very much. Again, really enjoy being a member of this organization and look forward to seeing everybody in person very soon. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mike, for that presentation. Next, we have our second sponsor, it's Cal Engineering and Geology, to be presented by Dan Peluso.
Right.
Dan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Let's see if we can get this going here. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to present a little bit about us. And thanks, Mike, for the plug. Appreciate it. It's been great working with you. We have 3 offices throughout the Bay Area. Our headquarters is in Walnut Creek. I manage the San Jose office. We have a lab in Hayward. And we work all over the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. We also have a lot of public works agency clients, and here's a sampling of some of our clients. We also team with a lot of consultants out there, including some of you who are on this call, and just really enjoy working with fellow engineers on a lot of fun projects. A lot of what we do is geotechnical engineering, and that's personally what I do. A lot of the projects we work on, like Mike, have to do with water. Here you see some pictures of some of our projects, and they often involve tanks and pipelines. Levees and dams are some of our most prominent projects. As sea level rise becomes more and more important, we have found that every sea level rise project out there has a geotechnical component. So it's becoming more and more important for us to be up on the latest information having to do with sea level rise. We also work on a variety of transportation projects. We've helped AECOM with a new toll gate gantry at the Golden Gate Bridge, and a variety of roadway slip out projects, design the retaining walls for these projects. Unlike a lot of geotechnical firms out there, we also offer civil and structural services for geocentric design projects. Like you see in these pictures here, retaining walls for roadways, pedestrian bridges on trails, levees, and flood walls along creeks. Landslide repairs are some of my favorite projects. This landslide you see an image here is in a neighborhood in La Honda, San Mateo County. A fairly sizable landslide kicked off in 2017, and they contacted us to not only evaluate a geotechnical design, but also prepare plan, specs, and estimate for the repair. And that is supposed to go into construction this summer. We also offer geotechnical construction management services. Like Mike mentioned, we're helping them on their Foster City levee project. And the CM projects we get involved with often are geocentric projects. This image here is of Arroyo de la Laguna in the Pleasanton area. And I think it was Zone 7 was the client on that. Our geospatial services include unmanned aerial surveys like drones. We use them for anything from preparing topo maps, using it in our construction management for change detection, and also inspection of spillways and other variety of things. Our GIS specialists have created a geo viewer that I use regularly internally to look at various maps and so forth that they've uploaded to our system. We've also created a project-specific web portal for the Foster City project and other projects that allow the people involved in the project to track certain information, and it's been very helpful. We also offer LiDAR scanning for things like pre-construction surveys and a variety of other usages. Our staff also provide expert engineering assistance to various agencies to oversee public works projects, review plan development plans, provide geotechnical peer review for submittals to the cities. And lastly, next time you go to check your Facebook feed, maybe go to the App Store instead and check out our app. It's called CENG Now. And what it does is it allows anyone like Public Works agency staff to take pictures of, say, a damaged slip out of a roadway, type in a message and send that to our project managers so they can get a response from us right away. So thank you again for allowing me a few minutes here to talk to you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for sharing information about your company. Next, we'll move to our agency spotlight portion of the program. And today we have the Director of Public Works from the City of South San Francisco, that's E.J. Kim, who will be providing some information about his city. So E.J., the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how I do this. Here we go. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Let me see here. How do I get rid of this sidebar?
Go to slideshow at the top and do start slideshow. There you go.
Okay.
From beginning on the far left there. Yeah.
All right. So my name is Yoon Jun Kim, Public Works Director and City Engineer for South San Francisco. Thank you for this opportunity to showcase South San Francisco. As you guys know, we are located in the Bay Area, just south of San Francisco, north of San Bruno. Land there. Our mission statement: in a partnership with our diverse community, we proudly support and sustain the environment and infrastructure through responsiveness, innovation, and professionalism. We have three major divisions in our department: the wastewater treatment plant, we call it the water quality control plant. Engineering, Matt Rubel, the principal engineer, is also here today. And we have our deputy director, Dave Bachhaus, here. And we have our maintenance division, a lot of different services: code enforcement, fleet maintenance, electrical. I'll go over these in the next few slides. So engineering division, as you guys all know, has CIP and permit reviews, traffic advisory committee for a lot of the traffic calming requests we get through this city. Our maintenance division is pretty robust. We provide services to other agencies, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But we also have a free South City shuttle and parking lots that we maintain in our wastewater treatment plant. We service adjacent cities nearby, as well as the San Francisco airport. So let's go over the engineering division. We do parks and rec facilities, buildings, streets and roads, traffic, storm drain, and sewer. Some of the permits that we handle in engineering is review of grading permits, encroachments, hauling permits, review of subdivision maps, and transportation permits. Our CIP budget is about $280 million for the next fiscal year. A good portion of that is in sewer, public facilities, streets, and then you got traffic and storm drains and parks. In our maintenance division, we try to provide 24-hour response, especially to sanitary sewer overflows, but also to like signal knockdowns. Especially these days, clean team is a big issue. I think if you guys are with a public agency, there's a lot of homeless encampments and illegal dumping going on, which is a continuous problem in the Bay Area. So in our code enforcement, we have a lot of cases that get reported. And, you know, like I said, the majority are illegal dumping, graffiti, some unpermitted construction noise, but the common complaint is basically illegal dumping, garbage, homeless encampments. So kind of melds all of that together. Concrete and asphalt maintenance. We have over 200 miles of sidewalks, 140 miles of streets that we work to maintain. So we just do spot repairs for the most part, and the CIP projects take care of the larger planned maintenance. And that goes the same with sewer and storm. 24-hour response is our goal, and we pretty much adhere to that. We have 74 signalized intersections in South San Francisco, and it's growing because we're putting in more signalized intersections. We have 4 underway right now, and that'll be bumped up to nearly 80. We take care of the 7 signalized intersections in Brisbane, 16 in San Bruno, 6 in Colma. We have about 5,000 streetlights as well. We do fleet maintenance. We have over 400 city vehicles, and we try to be environmentally conscientious, using recycled oil, antifreeze, etc. But we also have recently installed about 40 electric vehicle chargers, and we have just started to electrify our fleet with an order of 2 Chevy Bolts for our code enforcement division. And those will be our first electric vehicles in the city. A clean team takes care of the graffiti, illegal dumping. We help out Brisbane with street cleaning sometimes, and refreshing the symbols and the markings and the signage. We have parking lots and the parking meters associated with our downtown we maintain. Our South City shuttle, free shuttle. This was instituted back in 2017 after Samtrans removed some lines that were going through our city that was very helpful to our community. So we instituted a free South City shuttle program. It goes 2 ways, counterclockwise and clockwise, through this loop that takes people from the west of the city down to the downtown area, going through key locations like the Kaiser Hospital, the libraries, City Hall, and then the senior centers. Our wastewater treatment plant is happily taking crap from our residents since 1952. We have a lot of work going on here, probably close to $100 million of work going on right now under construction. Over 150 miles of sewer lines in the collection system, 13 major sewer pumping stations throughout the city. And we'll get more into the improvements at our wastewater treatment plant. So our sewer crew responding to some big ups. Our wastewater treatment plant was the 2020 medium-sized plant of the year by the Cal Water Environment Association. It's our lab chemists. Guy fishing in one of our collection ponds. So we, as you guys know, a wastewater treatment plant requires a lot of continuous maintenance work, as well as a lot of upgrades due to the changing environmental regulations. So under construction, we have not only our pump station upgrades and our normal recodings and redoing our SCADA and cogen and our electrical infrastructure. We're also doing sea level rise study for potential sewer and protect the plant from sea level rise because the outfall is near the bay. Here's how it's situated. Digesters here are being renovated. We have some fingers here. This is a separate system here for the fuel tanks of Shell, so don't get that mixed up here. They're clarifiers. So there's a number of renovations going on right now to increase the capacity and as well as the efficiency of our wastewater treatment plant. One of our clarifiers is being upgraded right now, and that's under construction. One of our digesters we took out two and put in one more efficient one and a larger one for a better digestion system called the Omnivore. If you guys aren't familiar with wastewater treatment, you probably wouldn't know that. It's pretty proprietary, as well as completing some different rehabilitations. Basically, our treatment system was only able to provide about 35 million gallons per day of primary and secondary treatments, but the EPA requires everything to be treated because we experience up to 60 million gallons per day during the high storm events. So we upgraded the treatment capacity to have primary and secondary treatment of everything going through the system. Here's a time lapse of the construction going on. Let's see if we can do this. Here it goes. This is the digester that's being upgraded. Demo the old one, put in the pad for the new one, piping. Prime contractor on this particular project is Flatiron. voila. Questions from the group?
Anyone have any questions for EJ? Oh, I definitely learned a lot about your city, EJ, that I never knew about South San Francisco. Your department offers a wide variety of services. And it's
Yeah,
really
the
interesting.
wastewater treatment plant serves San Bruno, Colma, SFO, Millbrae. So it serves a little community over here, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting to learn about your collaboration and helping other cities service their streetlights, and looks like this partnering at the treatment plant. That's really unique. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, now we'll move to our main presentation for today. Presentation is on the planning and design consideration of Class 4 bikeways and protected intersections. We have actually two of our board directors giving the presentation. They are Atmas Zudi. Atmas is the founder and president of APWA Engineering, a San Jose-based transportation consulting engineering firm on active transportation project delivery. Atmas has over 22 years experience in planning and designing various types of transportation projects. Since founding APWA, Atmas, he and his firm have primarily focused on delivering active transportation in the Bay Area. In his design approach, Atmas looks to develop solutions that enhance safety for all road users by focusing on simplicity of design that leads to intuitive, predictable, and forgiving transportation infrastructure for all users. And Atmas will be joined by John Cacciati. John is the principal of HMH Engineers. And John leads their public projects team. John graduated from San Jose State University and has 15 years of experience leading active transportation projects. He has led the bicycle pedestrian elements on dozens of local roadway and Caltrans interchange projects throughout the South Bay. So without further ado, we'll have Atmas and John begin their presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. Can I have someone confirm that you can hear me and you can see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very excited to be here talking about Class 4 bikeways. Both Atmas and I are very passionate about active transportation. Once again, I'm John Cacciati with HMH Engineers, principal here. I love bike and pedestrian treatments because there's so much creativity. It's an ever-evolving world, and it feels like every month there's new standards and new requirements, and we're really kind of figuring it out as we make this paradigm shift to really recognizing complete streets and the effort that really was started back in the early 2000s, but continuing to improve daily. So just really passionate about exactly what we're talking about here today. I really appreciate the time. Admas is going to do the second half of the presentation. Admas, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Admas Zudi, APWA Engineering founder, founded the company about 5 years ago. Again, my primary focus is on active transportation projects. And I'm here today to share some of my experiences in my design approach, and hopefully it'll be beneficial to some of you.
Thank you, Admas. So we could talk for hours about Class 4 bikeways, but we're really gonna try to focus on some lessons learned, some tips and tricks, some things that we've learned along the way that can hopefully help you plan and lay out your facilities and install really the highest caliber Class 4 bikeways that we can get rolled out on the streets. I'll be doing some brief background, and we'll talk about some planning and layout considerations for both on and off street, as well as intersection approaches. And then Admas will talk about the fine details, those little elements that really go so far in the ultimate user experience, things like what the taper on your curb is and how that might affect pedal strikes. So the little details that go so far in your finished product and really appreciated by the community. Real quick, some background. Class 4 bikeway is also known as a cycle track or a separated bikeway. They are characterized by having a physical separation from the roadway, whether it's delineators or curbs or vegetated areas, but they're physically separated. We'll also talk about protected intersections. This is a graphic of a protected intersection, mostly characterized by the fact that your bicycles and pedestrians are crossing in a similar configuration where your bikes are not in the roadway. They're not treated like a vehicular lane. They operate much more like a pedestrian crosswalk and have different signaling, signal phasing considerations to accommodate them. So why are class 4 bikeways important? Alta did a good study a couple of years ago on just the level of traffic stress. On the left is essentially no bike facilities. On the right would be a fully separated bike lane. And very intuitively, they found that, you know, as you increase the infrastructure associated with your bikeway and increase the separation, that level of traffic stress is decreased. And so your users are more likely to want to use the facility, and the perceived safety is increased. We're seeing this rolled out through some of our local guidance as well. This is an excerpt from the Santa Clara County Bicycle Plan that essentially recommends that if you've got more than 2 lanes on your roadway in each direction, and or your vehicle speeds are upwards of 25 miles per hour, that the minimum recommended feature for your bikeway would be a class 4 cycle track or a separated bikeway. So we're seeing agencies adopt this and recognize that class 2 bike lanes are just, they're not cutting it. And we're seeing that in the accident data that's out there. So we're seeing these adopted more and more, which is awesome, because what it's doing is it's helping us step everybody a notch up on this graph. So this is a breakdown of kind of the perception of the public on different types of bicycle facilities. Is an individual strong and fearless? Are they enthused and confident? Or as most of the public is at this time, they're interested but concerned. They want a bike, but they don't feel that the infrastructure is there to safely navigate the city, and actually want to get out of their vehicles and get on a bicycle. So what we're doing is we're really not focusing on those strong and fearless with class 4. It's about moving those interested but concerns up a notch into that enthusiastic and confident, and getting them excited about making that mode shift. So some tips and tricks for on-street bikeways. One of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out what type of buffer you want. Many people have seen graphics like this comparing pros and cons of different types of facilities. I won't go too much into it, but delineator posts are very cost-effective, can be installed quickly, but have long-term maintenance costs. They likely get struck and damaged. We'll talk a lot about precast curbs or cast in place curbs and some of the pros and cons of those, as well as other more significant barriers like parked cars, planters, stuff that you've likely seen. As I mentioned, this world is evolving, where every month it feels like there's new treatments that are being explored. Each of these treatments are currently in a pilot program in Arlington, Texas. On the left is a new take on a delineator that gives a little bit more continuous and really aesthetic, joyful feel to it, trying to get it a little bit less transportation-y and a little bit more inviting. You also see that bike rail in the middle is a new concept that's being explored right now, trying to make that delineation a little bit more rigid. Or one that I really like, I think these are really cool. Design Line has got these these planter boxes here, but the little treatments on here, things like a footrest for your bicyclist and a handrail to wait at that intersection. I mean, that's what elevates your design to the next level and really gets the community to embrace it and show that you're really thinking about these individuals. One of the first things we always do is look at your cross-sectional width. Some pretty easy questions that are always asked is, can your lane widths be reduced? Do you want a hardscape or a landscaped buffer? Do you want to use this buffer for C3 treatment? There's a great opportunity there if you've got the right of way to incorporate C3 treatment, consistent with a lot of local council goals for rolling out stormwater treatment on your roadway projects, even if it's not technically required for a bikeway project. One gotcha that we've seen a lot is considering shoulders. That bottom image down below is a buffered bikeway. Very often in planning documents, we'll see the recommendation to be, hey, slap on a bike buff or a curb or delineators and turn this into a class 4 bikeway. That's great, but local agencies should be deliberate and recognize that by eliminating the ability for a vehicle to drive across your buffered bikeway, you are eliminating the shoulder. Per Caltrans, class 2 bikeways are considered shoulders. Class 4 bikeways, because they are not navigable by a vehicle, are not shoulders. So you should be thinking about your disabled vehicles or emergency operations and being comfortable and seeking those design exceptions if you're proposing a facility that would eliminate shoulders that are there in the existing condition. Consider other city services. A lot of these people are very familiar with, but these are big gotchas if you're not thinking about them early in the design. Transit bus stops are a big deal. Understanding your yield control for your bikes crossing that transit boarding island, as you see up in the top right corner, is a good example of that. They've got a nice yield control, a well-delineated facility, crosswalk, ADA, detectable warning surfaces, and then a bus boarding island that has ample width for loading and unloading to meet ADA requirements. But if you're not careful, you can quickly stub your toe on some transit stops. Also consider trash collection. You don't want your dumpsters or garbage cans sitting in your bike lane. You want to make sure you have a designated area for them. As shown in that image on the left, they've got a carve out that actually is coincidentally in front of their hydrant. So they're duplicating the use there of where they're parking their trash collection. Also consider fire access, freight loading, all of these everyday city services that are sometimes overlooked when in the planning stage and you say, great, we want a buffered bike lane. You don't think about those implications. Another one that many agencies are seeing and aware of, but make sure you know what your street sweeper width is. I've worked on a handful of projects that in the planning phase, it says, yep, we want a 6-foot bikeway. And when the rubber meets the road in design and maintenance is finally looking at the project, they say, wait, our minimum sweeper width is 10 or 12 feet. We can't get in there to maintain this bikeway. So we need to step back and reassign that roadway width or the bikeway width to be able to accommodate street sweepers. Some agencies have procured modified street sweepers that are out on the market, like the one shown here in San Francisco that has variable width sweepers and can accommodate those narrow bike lanes. As you move into the off-street environment, these are sometimes known as the Dutch style bikeways or off-street cycle track, sidewalk level. There's a new kind of slew of complexities that get introduced as you have to deal with the interface of your bikes and pedestrians. One thing that we've learned and heard pretty consistently from the local biking community as we meet with various BPAC groups and bike advocacy forums is having redundant accommodations for your high-speed cyclists. This is an excerpt from our 280 Wolf project where we have signalized perpendicular crossings for those all ages and abilities users, those bicyclists that may not be comfortable merging with high-speed freeway bound traffic, which obviously is very complex. So we've got actually duplicate facilities here. The high-speed cyclists like this this weaving with your right turn pocket as shown in red, but then we've got the duplicate facilities in green for those all ages and abilities users that don't mind waiting at a stoplight and would much rather queue up there rather than have to weave across vehicles. So bikeable shoulders and redundancy for kind of all the different types of users you expect is something that will affect your layout. Thinking about the separation for bikes and pedestrians, there's really not great guidance. It's very vague right now about how to separate bikes and pedestrians on these facilities. You want to be thinking about something that's navigable, flexible, can maintain ADA compliance, so a visually impaired user is not accidentally crossing into your bikeway and subject to a collision that they may not know they're in an area that they're not supposed to be walking in. Caltrans Design Information Bulletin 89 is so vague. It simply says a continuous detectable vertical element. I've heard members of Caltrans team interpret that as little as a 1 or 2 inch curb and as significant as a barrier or a fence. And so it's very, very vague as far as what they require. We've worked with them to kind of scale back the logistics of having a fence actually between your bikes and peds and what that would actually do to the operations and the complexities of how a cyclist would have to navigate this area safely. NACDO does take it a step further. They talk about the vertical separation between cycle track and sidewalk should be 0 to 5 inches. So at least they're giving you some clue about potentially having a curb there. Again, you want to be really thinking about if there was debris in your bike lane, could a bike get out of the bike lane, or would they be essentially trapped? And how would a bicycle and a pedestrian kind of navigate this space if there were issues in their designated areas? The Transportation Research Record recently put out a study that was done on a project in San Francisco looking at this exact issue, the delineators between separated bikeways at sidewalk level. They studied 4 alternatives, a corduroy pattern, a flat top, truncated domes, and a trapezoidal shape that's shown graphically in that bottom right corner. So each of these was about 12 inches wide, and they studied the ability for a visually impaired pedestrian to detect that there was something here and that they may be entering into a hazard. What they found and what the study recommended is that trapezoidal shape there, they were actually seeing an average percentage of correct identifications upwards of 98%. So really good detection by visually impaired about how are they entering into or crossing into a facility that they shouldn't be crossing into. So we're seeing some local agencies, including the city of San Francisco, city and county of San Francisco, adopting some of these types of elements. But as you're rolling out off-street facilities that are really great, you want to be thinking about this. It's a big area of liability for ADA compliance and bike collisions. You also want to be thinking about pavement materials on that same line, detection and distinction, making sure it's clear where the bikes are supposed to be and where your pedestrians are supposed to be. Think about ongoing maintenance costs of what your bikeway is made of. Typical materials, asphalt and concrete are being rolled out. Asphalt does have the inherent benefit that it does not look like a sidewalk. So it's very intuitive to most users that that's not an area for pedestrian walkways. We've also seen some tech campuses in the area roll out Technosoil's G5 pavement. It's made of a combination of recycled plastics, and they claim it has better durability than asphalt and concrete in these uses. So we're seeing some adoption in the private side for some alternate materials. That's kind of exciting. As you get to intersections, things get even more messy, obviously. Accommodating right turn pockets. There's a couple different options here that you want to be thinking about. The image in the top right is actually what's a conventional kind of class 2 weaving, and down below on the bottom right shows that same approach to the intersection. But essentially, you've got a weaving consideration where your vehicles weave across the bikeway, but then those bikes are still separated from the through movement with their buffer and clear of the right turning vehicles, gives them a nice safe place to queue there without requiring a substantial amount of right of way. There's also bend in or bend outs that you've likely heard of in the bottom left corner. You do want to be careful with these because they don't negate the right hook potential. That's the potential for a vehicle turning right to clip a bicyclist. The bend out that's shown in this graphic is intentionally offset from the roadway, trying to promote the visibility of those cyclists from that turning vehicle. You'll notice that that turning vehicle in the graphic here is fully perpendicular to the bikeway and clear of the through movement. Those are 2 very important considerations when aligning your bend outs. But again, you do want to be considerate of your signal phasing, whether or not you want to protect that crossing or give them a leading pedestrian interval to try to promote the visibility of those cyclists. Left turn pockets are even harder. For a buffered or a protected bikeway, that top right image shows a concept that can work successfully on smaller roads, but kind of gets unwound on larger roads like shown here. But the concept is you have a regular opening in your class 4 bikeway that allows the cyclist to merge across a lane of traffic on smaller roadways to get to that left turn pocket. The key is that you want to give them a number of openings so that as a cyclist is riding through here and they look over their shoulder, if that opening is not available while a vehicle is, because a vehicle is coming, they've got another opening. So we'll typically do something like a 20-foot long opening at 50 or 100-foot intervals, giving them a couple different options to weave across traffic. But if they reach the intersection and they still did not feel comfortable weaving across traffic, you still need some accommodations at the intersection. So treatments like bike boxes that are shown in the bottom left corner, or a two-stage turning movement like the image in your bottom right corner. Each of these kind of has its drawbacks though. Bike boxes, that left image, they work well at red lights. The vehicles are stopped. Your bicyclist can kind of get out in front of the vehicle, get in the lane that they want to be in, and then they're leading the pack, which means they're very visible, and vehicles are subject to where that bicyclist is. They do kind of fall apart when the light is green. You can imagine a cyclist coming southbound on this image trying to get into that left turn pocket while the through movement is moving. There's not a great opportunity for them to get across. And so we do see that as a drawback with your bike boxes. Similar drawbacks with the two-stage turning movement in that, as shown in that image on the right, your bicyclists are kind of out floating in the middle of the intersection. The confident riders are okay with that, but if our goal here is really to promote that mode shift and accommodate those all ages and abilities users, what we see is with two-stage turning movements, a lot of times those cyclists will continue to use the crosswalk. They'd rather wait in behind the curb on the crosswalk than in kind of an exposed configuration out in the roadway, which leads us to protected intersections. With Class 4 bikeways, protected intersections are a great way to accommodate your bikes at the signal. Some considerations of a protected intersection: your bikes are crossing separate from the roadway, much like a pedestrian. And so these kind of go hand in hand with Class 4 bikeways to get your facilities through the intersection. They're state of the industry and really being adopted throughout the nation pretty quickly. When laying out your protected intersections, first and foremost, truck turns. I can tell you within an hour of looking at your intersection and running some quick numbers, whether or not a protected intersection is even on the table. Truck turns will govern your protected intersection, and if you've got narrow right-of-way or tight curb returns, it's probably not a good fit. There are some nuances here, though, that we should be aware of. NACTO does provide guidance on the differences between a design vehicle and a control vehicle. And it is important and can provide a lot of opportunity for you to tighten things up for bikes and peds. Your design vehicle is a frequent vehicle that remains in its own lane at all times. This would be a FedEx delivery truck or kind of a moving truck, a vehicle that might be expected to make this movement daily. Whereas your control vehicle is the largest vehicle legally allowed to navigate this turn. So if you do accommodate trucks, or this is on an interchange or a major thoroughfare, these would be large trucks that might be infrequent to make this turning movement, but you do want to be sure that you can accommodate them, and they are allowed to sweep across lanes in the same direction of travel. So on a multi-lane roadway, these control vehicles that are infrequent, depending on your facility, you can consider them to sweep out and around to make this curve. And so it does provide a lot of opportunity here about what your design vehicle is. And then, of course, your managed vehicle is your everyday sedan and SUV. And you'll see in this image, it's turning around your truck apron. So you've got an even tighter radius for those drivers, forcing them to slow down to be able to adequately navigate that turning radius. Major layout considerations when you're trying to figure out how a protected intersection could fit. That top image, I can't emphasize this enough, but the refuge for your pedestrians between the vehicle lanes and the bike lanes needs to be 6 feet. It needs to be 6 feet to be a refuge for ADA compliance. If that's not 6 feet wide, essentially what Caltrans has interpreted the code to be is that you need to signalize your bike crossing. So you can imagine how uncomfortable or unusual that would be if at that yield control with your bikes and pedestrians, you actually have a bike signal separate or in anticipation of the future signal and trying to time those together. So having that 6 foot refuge is valuable. It allows your pedestrian to get up closer to the roadway, shortening your crossing distance, as well as allowing that crossing to be yield control. In that bottom image, the distance from your actual roadway to your back of walk gets very big very quickly for good reasons. What I show here is 18 feet plus or minus minimum. That's your 6-foot refuge, a 6-foot bikeway, and a 6-foot sidewalk. And that doesn't take into consideration the geometry or distance required for your ADA ramps. And so that can quickly grow at your intersections and can be a deal breaker if you don't have adequate right-of-way to fit these facilities in. And then lastly, insufficient corner islands. That image on the left would not be recommended. That's actually from another country. So luckily it's not in our backyard, but you can see there, the bikes are essentially unprotected. It's an attempt to have a protected intersection, but your bikes are just sitting out exposed. You want to have an adequate corner island that is detectable, can be visible for a vehicle that's navigating that turn. So they're not coming across the top of your median island, and they know where that delineation is. And it looks like a rigid constraint that drivers need to be aware of and careful around. One of my last items is the location of furniture. On the image at the left, all of your streetlights and push buttons are all still on your existing sidewalk. That makes a lot of sense when you're doing quick build implementation, or if that's really your intent. But recognize that when you've got your push button back there, your pedestrians will wait back on your sidewalk. So that crossing distance is not shortened. Your pedestrians are still going to take longer to cross that crosswalk if your furniture is set back. It also, moving your furniture out to the street, as shown in the image on the right, on the inside of the refuge, narrows the window that drivers are looking for features. They typically use those cues of your vertical obstructions, whether it's traffic signals or trees or whatever it may be. That kind of delineates the roadway prism for them. So by narrowing that up, they can focus on some of the issues in front of them rather than having a really wide angle of sight trying to figure out everything that's going on. And it also encourages your pedestrians to wait closer to the roadway. As long as you've got an ample space there, your crossing calculations for the signal phasing cycle can be reduced because you've got a shorter crossing distance. One thing we are aware of on all of our protected intersections is they do typically come with a reduction to level of service for traffic operations. So anything we can do to offset that degradation is valuable. Lastly, just some geometric configurations to consider for protected intersections. It does not need to be a 4-legged intersection, and there's a lot of flexibility in the design about how you navigate these crossings. Obviously, you want high bicycle volumes. Pork chops are great. They are out of style. They have outdated pedestrian crossings with high-speed vehicles. So retrofitting those pork chops with narrow or with tight radii around your protected intersections is valuable. Having available right-of-way protected intersections, as I mentioned, do take space. So projects that are not immediately adjacent to full build-out of development are valuable. And lastly, has the ability to offset your traffic operations. In this image, which is at Central Expressway and De La Cruz Boulevard, that's currently under construction, you can see from the existing condition, there was just a slip right turn. Well, we added double right turn lanes in each movement so that we could fully protect our bike movements and accommodate our two-way movement. So the pedestrian and bicycle phases here are fully protected when those are activated by your bikes and peds, and we offset that degradation with improvements to the roadway geometry to accommodate that additional queuing. So with that, I'll pass it to Admas, who can talk more about some of the details that can elevate your project to the next level.
Thank you, John. And I will focus on safety aspects of our design when we try to encourage more bicycling and protect bicyclists from vehicles. Got to make sure that our design does not introduce new risks for bicyclists. So that's kind of the focus of my portion of the presentation. And I have a poll that Jason will help me run. Jason, can you initiate the poll? Very good. So I have just a 2-question poll. How many times have you fallen off your bike on a paved public road? And the second question is, how many times have you fallen off your bike because you were hit by a motor vehicle? So if you could respond to this poll, that would be really nice. I'm going to put that to the side. And if you can continue to the next slide, John. So most design solutions and most design guidelines focus on vehicle and bicycle accidents. I'm talking about protected bikeways and bikeway design in general. But our design must also consider non-motor vehicle related safety factors. Is our poll over, Jason?
Looks like the voting has slowed down. We've got about 31 votes. Is that good for you?
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So
I can share the results.
yeah, let's do it. Awesome. So we have one person that was engaged in a vehicle-related bicycle accident, whereas we have a number of folks that have fallen off their bikes, ostensibly by themselves, or maybe colliding with some other person on a bike or some other sort. So this is personally my experience has been I've fallen off my bike 4 times in the category. I'd be the one there at 4, and all 4 times have been without any involvement of a vehicle. Thank you. Thanks for participating. So that's the main point here is we also need to understand that bicycle accidents occur without cars. So next slide. In fact, a study done in Australia shows that a majority of accidents are single bicycle accidents. So 60% are single bicycle accidents. And even when multiple parties are involved, another 20% is an accident with another bicycle. So that's a significant portion of the accidents are single bicycle accidents. The second element that I want to highlight on this slide is that single bicycle crashes are very rarely reported. So as you can see, only 3% of these accidents were reported to the police. So the data we get as designers is highly skewed, where 71% of car-involved vehicle accidents we hear about, but only 3% of single bicycle crashes we hear about. Next. The reality is that most bike accidents are infrastructure related. And this is a study done in the Netherlands. And yeah, they are embarrassing. I get up quickly as soon as I fall down. So infrastructure related crashes represent about 52% of single bicycle crashes on paved roadways. And I've highlighted in red here what I think are infrastructure related, like design related or improvements that we actually intentionally put on the roadways as facilities, and the relationship of those with the number of accidents. And I specifically want to highlight the two in orange, which is a swerved into shoulder. These are people that leave the designated bike lane and crash into a pole or of the embankment or something like that, and hitting a curb with their front wheels or with their pedals. So a significant number of bicycle accidents occur due to some of these elements. And even the other ones are related to maintenance aspects that public works departments should be interested about. Next. And the data also shows that most of these accidents are represented by younger children and the elderly. Again, these are the two demographic groups that we would like to encourage to use our bike facilities more. And we, in their interaction with the built environment, they are the ones that are being the victims more often. And also women. So the light line that you see is women. So elderly women are represented very highly in both emergency room visits as well as hospitalization after a single bike crash. Next. So what is the decision making as a bicyclist? I think as designers, we need to understand from the perspective of the bicyclist that bicyclists are actually very vulnerable on the road. They have to balance on 2 wheels, and their only protection is a helmet they put on their heads. And meanwhile, they are expected to make very complex decisions. And many of them, younger or elderly folks, still are expected to make very complex decisions. Here's an example of an protected intersection, protected bikeway approaching an intersection. And as a bicyclist, you have to worry about the change in the alignment of the path or the narrowing of the path. There's a pole on the one side. You don't want to hit the curb with your pedals on the other side. There's a gutter seam that you don't want to get your wheels stuck on. You have to watch out for the pedestrians crossing the street. You have to watch out for the cars making a turn. And imagine doing this, during evening time or on a rainy day, or a young child heading to school, or an elderly person going to shopping. It's a tough task to be a bicyclist on our roadways. So we have to be very mindful of the types of improvements that we put on the streets. Next. Other factors, of course, bicyclists, just like it's a cross-section of society, so they're not perfect. Distracted cycling is a common factor in many of these accidents. Unfamiliarity with the location. A lot of the accidents also occur, for users that have not had prior experience with the specific bike route. Looking behind for, openings in cars. When you turn, your wheels are likely to turn with you. Visually impaired folks, many times bicycling is their only way of getting around other than walking. So that's a risk area. And of course, alcohol use, just like driving while intoxicated, bicycling also is probably more dangerous. So protected bikeways. So now that we understand, the risk factors involved, what protected bikeways do, unlike what many people think, they actually do not protect us from errant vehicles. So that's not their purpose. Their main purpose is really to manage the interaction of vehicles and or various road users, essentially. And one of the real benefits, as demonstrated in this graph, is that they actually encourage people to ride more. So it's documented that people ride more on a protected bikeway because they feel more comfortable and more safe. Whether that's true or not is debatable. Next. So John had previously shared with us different types of bicycle facilities and protections. Again, this is a study I find some of the findings interesting. This is comparing the reaction of users before and after implementation of different types of bike facilities compared to a standard bike lane. So what I find interesting is the third data point, which is a painted buffer and parked cars. The experienced and the confident bicyclists, in fact, rate that lower than a standard bike lane in terms of safety, while the less confident folks, see it somewhat beneficial. And the other point that I see here that's interesting is the raised curb, which is the fourth data point, and the buffered bike lane with the plastic post, which is the fifth data point. The comparison between the two. For the occasional bicyclist or the interested but not concerned, they almost serve the same level of, they provide the same level of comfort. Whereas the experienced and confident bicyclists see the delineator posts to be much more comfortable than the raised curbs. So in my view, I think the intuitive and the confident and strong probably have a good sense of the real risks of the roadway facilities than the other group. So this, I think this is an interesting survey results. All right, let's move on. So with all this thing in the background, I wanted to present to you some of the way I think about when I designed projects is, first do no harm, right? So let's not install something that would make that would create an unsafe situation for the road users. The other thing is predictable. So even if somebody is new to the facility, they should be able to understand it and use it correctly. So that's an important design consideration. Third is forgiving and flexible. again, like we saw in the data, people do make mistakes. And it's, when they make mistakes, our design should be flexible enough and forgiving enough so that any mistake does not lead to an accident. And finally, appropriate, making sure that our design is consistent with the context, as well as the level of protection that's needed. Next. So let's look at some design details with that kind of speak to some of these things. I want to make a caveat here that this is not a recommendation for all projects. So these design solutions are specific to the context of the project. So please consider them in that fashion. Next slide. So road surface is one of the critical safety factors for bicyclists. So making sure that the bikeway doesn't have any or doesn't have unnecessary grooves or edges or bumps or manhole covers that are not flush with the pavement, or even the friction characteristics of the manhole plates, the DIs, the pavement striping, all of those things should be considered in our design. And I try to encourage public agencies to do a thin layer of overlay on a new protected bikeway facility to provide a smooth riding surface for users. So next slide. Gutters. So in the Bay Area, the gutters and RIC and some of the local agencies are about 24 inches, different cross slopes. There are about 73 days of rain in the Bay Area. And I see gutters being too wide, honestly. And I see it similar to how we used to design for the peak hour for traffic operations, but we don't do that anymore. I see it the same way. So we're designing for the 20% of the year where it rains, whereas bicycling occurs 365 days. And do these gutters really serve us well? Next slide. So again, a study about bike placement related to gutter lips suggests that people shy away from gutter lips by approximately, 9 to 15 inches from gutter lips. So that really reduces your bikeable width of your facility. Now, in the case of your protected intersection where the protection is a curb, that really also limits the amount of space, because they have to shy away from the curb on one side and the gutter seam on the other side. Next slide. So again, what I try to encourage folks to do is reduce the gutter width to about a foot. And the reason for that is the curb, the 6-inch curb, is also an obstruction that bicyclists shy away from. So typically they won't get anywhere closer to 12 inches to the edge of the curb. So that way, if we reduce the gutter to about 12 inches, we're maximizing essentially the bikeable width of the road, and also providing some drainage capacity for the gutters. Next slide. Another consideration is drainage inlets. As you can see in the top right picture, this is a before and after picture on the North Access Road in South San Francisco. And as you can see, the gutter, the drainage inlet takes away almost all of the bike lane. And if you ride on one of these drainage inlets, because they have depressions, they are very uncomfortable. And if you're not aware of them, you may actually lose control of your bike. So it can be quite dangerous. So again, if the agency is open to it, in this case, South San Francisco was, it would be a great idea to get the grades out of the path of, if possible. And the way we are able to accommodate the drainage, compensate the drainage loss of the removal of the grades is we added a graded line drain in this case on the approaches to the DI on both sides. But if you have a vegetation, like green infrastructure, opportunity, that's even better to move the DI completely off the road and have curb cuts and deal with the drainage that way. Next. Curbs, APWA identifies the purpose of curbs as drainage control, edge delineation, aesthetics, and other things. But what it does not say is it provides protection for pets and bikes. So curbs are not intended for protecting us from errant vehicles. In fact, a car that hits a curb may lose control and be more dangerous. When we design protected bikeways, having a 6-inch curb right next to the edge of travelway is probably not a good idea. APWA also says up to 4 inches of curb height is mountable by vehicle without losing control. In designing these raised curbs next to active travel lanes, I also try to suggest using a shorter profile curb for the islands. Next. So the other reason for using a smaller curb is the bike pedals are about 3 to 5 inch high from the ground. This is I measured my bike and it's about 3.5 inch clear from the ground. So with a 3-inch curb on the bike side, hopefully, bicyclists will be able to avoid hitting the curb with their pedals as they ride through the facility. Next. Here is a project that we did in Cupertino, where we use the same details that I'm talking about here. Again, on the picture, on the drawing picture on the left side, what you see is a 4-inch curb tacked onto the pavement on the vehicle side. It's a 4-inch high, and on the bike side, it's actually recessed 1 inch lower, so that the exposed face is about 3 inches for the bikes. So that's a design detail that we could use. Go on. Island noses can be pretty dangerous for both cars and bikes, so we should be careful about how we design them. Next slide. So here is an island design that we did in South San Francisco, again on North Access Road. Recessed, we embedded it into the pavement, and we tapered it so it allows for wheel tracking, as well as it's forgiving for bicyclists or cars that crash right head on into it. Next. So that same detail has been included in South San Francisco standard detail as of December 2020 for future mountable media designs. Next. And here is a project in Cupertino, again, forgiving and flexible design, where we embedded the nose of the median into the ground to protect bicyclists as well as cars that may crash into it face on. Next. Here's where it all kind of comes together. I know it's a little complicated, and a couple of driveways coming from the top of the page, raised curbs on the approaches to the driveways on either side, that's shown in blue. And in the driveway area, we had a continuous band of a mountable island. That's the detail shown on the right side. And then we have small sections where the flesh island is used just adjacent to the driveways. That's for garbage bin zone, where residents are supposed to be putting their garbage. So the pictures on below show the after implementation situation. As you can see on the left side, where people place the garbage bins where they're supposed to, in line with the islands. The bicyclists can go as they're supposed to. But if the folks put the garbage bins by the curb like they're used to, again, there's plenty of room for the bikes to get around. Next. So these are some more details. And in construction, we actually did, John Raymakers from City of Cupertino did a mock-up, and we tried it out in the city parking lot before implementing it. Next. And this is a flat top portion, the flush island for the garbage bin placement. Next. And finally, this is a design that actually on Clayland Road as well, but this is what John and HMH designed. I think it's an elegant design as well, where they shifted the gutter more into the traffic lane and then provided a curb in the valley gutter essentially. And then where the driveways are, there are openings, and then the garbage bins will be placed in that area. This removes a lot of the potential barriers for bicyclists on the edges. So it's one way to approach the design. So with that, we conclude our presentation. I hope that's been useful for some of you. And if you have any questions, I know we're running out of time, but if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Does anyone have questions for John or Amos?
I posted a question in the chat on Wolf. I don't know if you want to read that.
Sure, and I will tackle that since it's my project. Does Wolf have both a class 4 and another bike lane, or is it experienced cyclist anticipated to ride in the shoulder? So that's an ongoing kind of discussion, but the plan is we have a fully off-street class 4, and then we have redundant bikeable shoulders. So those shoulders will have a 1-foot gutter. They meet all of the design requirements of a bike lane, but we are not, we don't anticipate all of the paint and plastic that we would implement if it was a full class 2, because we want to be delicate to provide an opportunity and redundancy, but not encourage. We don't want a cyclist that's approaching the interchange to stay on street because they think that's the most appropriate place for them to be. So we're encouraging them to get off street onto the class 4, but we have a redundant kind of backup system. And if someone finds themselves in the interchange, then they'll start to see the striping on the street telling them kind of where to be with the bike stencils. But at the kind of divergence point, or when they're approaching the project area, most, if not all of the signage is going to be saying, get off street and go use this new facility. Thanks, Joe.
John and Amos, there's another question in the chat.
Okay, any thoughts from presenters or attendees for transitioning a bike lane from the right to the left when a through lane turns into a right turn only lane? So there are multiple guidelines on how to do this. Personally, my preference is to get the bikes aligned to where they're supposed to be on the left, towards the left, ahead of the right, allowing the right turn to merge in, so that the bicyclist would be on a straight alignment and the car will be forced to make a right turn into the bike lane, if that makes sense. There are some treatments on the NACTO guidelines, and there's some studies also on the efficacy of them, and how people react to them, whether people do them properly or not, and I'll be happy to share with you some of those studies as well.
Thanks, Admas. I'll do the next one I see from DJ Edwards, which is what clear width should be provided for a bicyclist to safely pass a trash bin, either residential or commercial. What I would recommend is consider that trash bin as part of the ultimate design, and then use your minimum bikeway width as that remaining portion. So depending on the design guidance that you're following, whether it be Caltrans or NACTO, that's typically on the order of about 5 feet minimum for a protected bikeway. 6-7 feet is typically recommended. And so I would try to hold that same minimum width through the obstruction if possible, or if you've got a continuous 7-foot wide bike lane, having a localized reduction there would be acceptable. The reason for 7 is so that bicyclists could pass. Depending on the frequency of your trash enclosures, that probably isn't a necessity. You don't need to accommodate a cyclist passing another cyclist at a trash can. I think that would be overly conservative.
Okay. Thank you, John and Amos, for the informative presentation. And with the Q&A, we're at the 1 o'clock time. So to respect everyone's schedule, we're going to start wrapping up the meeting. I'm going to ask Jason to get ready for the raffle. But I do want to let everyone know on July 21st will be our next chapter meeting. And the main presentation for that meeting will be the Deputy Public Works Director from the City of Manteca. And he will be discussing the State Route 120 Union Row. It's called Diverging Diamond Interchange, will be the main topic for that day. So hope you can join us for our next meeting on July 21st. Now we're going to move to the final and last fun part of the meeting. Jason Yee is usually helping us with our raffle. And so anyone who's not a board member is eligible for our Amazon gift card prize.
Ooh,
Sounds good. I'll get the number generator ready. We have 41 participants in chat. If you are not eligible, please let me know after I call your name. But we have, I'm assuming this won't work, number 4, which is actually you, Lisa. So I'm sure that doesn't work.
Oh,
So let me generate it again. 24 this time. So give me a second. Joe Streeper is the winner today.
Congratulations, Joe.
Yes, my woohoo.
We heard it through the camera, the visual.
Wait, what did I win?
You won a $50 gift card to Amazon.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Congratulations. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the future in our upcoming meetings. So have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.